When the invisible woman turns out to be the most powerful person in the room, and they have no idea. The headquarters of Graybridge Holdings, where glass walls reflected the Texas sun like a silent warning. Power lives here, and it watches everything. The lobby buzzed with the rhythm of ambition. Heels clicked across marble floors, suits brushed past like knives, and emails were fired faster than bullets. But no one noticed Marion. She entered through the back service door, pushing her cleaning cart, the same way she had, quietly, for over a decade. Her olive green uniform, faded at the seams, was her camouflage. But beneath it, she was more than they could ever imagine. Few people knew the name of Avabrook Trust, LLC, a faceless holding company buried in the shareholder registry. Fewer still knew that it controlled the largest voting bloc in the firm, and no one knew it belonged to her. She had inherited it quietly years ago after the sudden passing of her husband, one of the original founders, written out of company lore, but not its bylaws. Marion chose to remain invisible, watching from the shadows as the men upstairs gutted the company's soul for profit. To them, she was just the janitor, a nobody, and that was her greatest weapon. She entered through the back entrance, pushing her cleaning cart with the slow, steady rhythm of the building's own heartbeat. Her olive green uniform, frayed slightly at the cuffs, was the silent armor she wore every day. No one greeted her. No one asked if she needed anything. To them, she didn't exist. A group of white executives brushed past her without slowing down, their expensive cologne hitting her face like a silent message. "This is our territory," one of them snickered. "She's here every morning like some hallway guardian. Feels like a company monument or something." They all burst into laughter. Marion heard every word, but her expression didn't change. She had heard things like that thousands of times. She wasn't just an older cleaning lady. Marion was the only remaining black woman on the executive floor's service team after 3 rounds of layoffs. The rest, mostly light-skinned, younger hires, were assigned to the lower floors. A newly hired African colleague once whispered to her, "I get this weird feeling like we're being pushed out of those glass floors." Marion just nodded, her eyes full of experiences the younger woman hadn't lived yet. They don't discriminate by job, they discriminate by color. Last week, a white janitor spilled a bucket of bleach in the hallway on the 28th floor. A small accident, but the next day the HR director personally came to comfort him and even sent an email thanking him for his hard work. A month earlier, Marion had been accused of not properly cleaning a VIP conference room, even though she wasn't on shift that day. No one defended her. No one even checked. They just looked at her uniform and her skin. All of this built up little by little, like wind pressing against a mountain wall. Marion wasn't the type to crumble, but she never forgot. That morning, she overheard a conversation outside the executive lounge. "Next week's the shareholder meeting. If we lock down the votes, the CEO's safe. A few rumors about the Lagos investment, but whatever. Who cares? The lower ranks don't know how we're making money anyway." Lagos. Marion froze. That's where a group of African employees had been fired after speaking up about delayed wages, and were labeled culturally incompatible. She gripped the cleaning cart so tightly her knuckles turned white. A surge of anger rose in her chest. But then, she pushed it back down, like she always did. But this time, calm wasn't a choice. It was the last layer of a bomb that had already been armed. "She's still here?" Marion was wiping down the hallway windows when she heard CEO Martin Greer laugh from inside his office. "I thought that old cleaning lady finally quit. Maybe she's just grown roots into that damn cart." Another burst of laughter rang out, loud and arrogant. None of them knew Marion was standing less than 10 feet away. They didn't care. She looked up, her eyes reflecting the glass sky of the building itself. Cold, sharp, unforgiving. Every insult is a blade, but also a bullet, and she's loading the magazine. She had been collecting shredded documents that weren't destroyed properly. She had copies of suspiciously revised reports. She had emails from silenced employees. She had recordings, like the one just now, made when people assumed she didn't understand or couldn't hear. They thought she was just a shadow. They didn't know that shadow was moving. No one in the building noticed the slight shift in Marion's gaze. No one questioned why she wiped the same glass panel twice. No eyes lingered long enough to realize her silence was no longer submission, but the dawn of a quiet storm. She didn't just wipe tables, change trash bags, or vacuum carpets. She listened, remembered, documented. Marion had seen enough to understand that the success of Graybridge Holdings wasn't the inspirational startup story the media loved to tell, but a silent slaughter of the most vulnerable, especially people like her, poor, black, and voiceless. That night shift began like any other, but this time Marion was ready to remember everything. After mopping the senior executive lounge, she overheard voices in the still-lit break room. Two mid-level managers sipping wine and smiling behind crystal glasses, unaware that the invisible woman stood just outside the sliding glass door. "We axed nearly 30 roles this year. Nobody even blinked," one said, taking a drag from his cigarette. "We should keep a death pool before they even show up for the interview," the other laughed. "Too bad we can't fire the coffee machine." They laughed like it was nothing. But to Marion, it was chilling. The people they joked about? The Latino maintenance worker, the black woman at reception, the young IT technician fired after reporting payroll issues. They all used to greet her with a smile. That night, in her small apartment on the south side of the city, under a dim yellow light and next to a worn-out notebook, Marion began to write. Not a diary, a dossier, not out of sudden rage, but because years of silent disrespect had finally reached the tipping point. She wrote names, listed times, behaviors, even the cases where Asian staff were dismissed with no explanation. She wrote about the internal meetings where she cleaned in silence and remembered every word. And she wrote about herself, a 55-year-old black woman treated like a walking shadow. By day, she became more careful. She noted meeting schedules, tracked who left documents unlocked. She didn't steal. She recorded what others dismissed, but held truth. Like edited timesheets, budget reports where bonuses for low-level staff were crossed out. Notes about a mysterious training fund no one ever benefited from. One discarded document revealed the most painful fact, a list of recommended terminations, all people of color or over the age of 50. Marion sent the draft file to her niece, a former civil rights attorney in Houston. She reached out to Jerome, a former employee fired for being unprofessional, when all he did was refuse to cover up a violation. She called a woman from the finance department, someone she'd once found crying in the restroom after her manager called her a diversity prop. One by one, they came back to help her, not for revenge, for justice. Marion stood in the staff bathroom, facing the flickering light, reading her words out loud. "I'm not background noise. I am a witness. I didn't walk into this building as a janitor today. I'm the one who preserved the last pieces of integrity in this company when you left it to rot." Executives in suits laughed in the hallway. A younger white employee glanced at Marion, chewing gum, and muttered, "Think you're lost on the wrong floor, lady." She kept pushing her cart. Didn't respond. Her hand rested on the thickest folder she'd ever assembled, her face blank, but her eyes sharp enough to split the Dallas sky in half. When she entered the boardroom, with its soft lighting, polished wood floor, and Italian leather chairs, no one looked up until she spoke. "Excuse me." The entire room turned. Martin Greer looked up from his papers, voice cold. "This is a private meeting. You can come back when we're done." Marion didn't leave. She stepped forward, placed the company-branded folder on the table, and spoke like a judge delivering a verdict. "I'm here because I can no longer let this continue. For years, you've built glory on the backs of the forgotten. I will not be silent anymore." Martin raised an eyebrow, his voice almost mocking. "And who do you think you are?" Marion looked him straight in the eye. "I'm the one you never bothered to see, and that was your biggest mistake." Her gaze locked on Greer, calm but sharp as a razor's edge. "No, Mr. Greer, I'm not here to mop the floors. I'm the controlling shareholder of Graybridge Holdings, and today I'm officially removing you from your position." A wave of silence swept through the room. Martin's face blanched like he had just been slapped across his pride. the ever-present arrogance drained from his features, replaced by panic barely hidden behind pale skin. You're joking, right? His voice faltered. No, Mr. Greer, Marion replied, unblinking. I've never joked about anything in my life. She turned slowly toward the board members, those who had ignored injustice for years because they were too busy counting profits. Kononora, I have here all the data. Fraudulent payroll reports, illegal terminations, internal emails blaming employees of color when projects failed, and harassment complaints hidden in the so-called digital trash bin. She didn't need to raise her voice. Her words carried more weight than a gavel. I own enough shares to call for the removal of the CEO, and I'm doing it. Today. An older white board member shot to his feet, flustered. Wait, we need time to review. You've had time. 10 years, Marion cut in. What we need now isn't more time. It's transparency. Greer lashed back, his voice hissing between his teeth. Who are you to stand here and accuse me in front of the board? Marion stared at him, each word like a blade. I'm the woman none of you thought important enough to remember by name. I'm the shadow you brushed past in the hallway, and I'm the one who can end your career through law, through ownership, and through the truth. Thick binders were passed hand to hand, company-branded covers stuffed with documented violations, internal emails, screenshots of doctored payroll, meeting notes concealing internal investigations, unanswered employee complaints, and most damning of all, a termination list, with 78% being people of color. Security was called. The glass doors opened. The man who once ran the company, who treated Marion like dust underfoot, now walked past her, unable to lift his head. Marion didn't smile. She didn't need to. The truth was loud enough to speak justice on its own. Whispers echoed through every floor. Is it true she's the largest shareholder? Marion, the janitor no one even knew the name of? But this time they weren't whispering with mockery. They whispered with respect and shame. The next day, Marion didn't bring a mop. She brought a plan, not to punish, to rebuild. First, she signed an order raising the wages of all support staff, including janitorial, security, and maintenance workers. Then she reopened every dismissed complaint, especially those involving harassment, racism, and labor exploitation. She created an independent oversight board with full authority to audit without permission. Board members who once supported Greer were now required to attend mandatory equity and inclusion training. No more immunity. Marion hosted an open meeting, inviting every employee, from interns to department heads, to share stories and reform proposals. She didn't just listen. She took notes, gave feedback, and took action. For the first time, employees of color raised their hands. For the first time, a disabled employee was nominated for a management role. And for the first time, everyone in the company felt seen. One afternoon, as Marion left a meeting, she ran into the intern who had once spilled coffee in front of Greer. He leaned in slightly and whispered, "Thank you for doing what all of us thought was impossible." Marion paused, smiled. "I didn't do it alone. We did it together." The Graybridge Holdings building reflected the sunset, but this time it wasn't a symbol of cold power. It was a symbol of rebirth. Marion looked up at the place that once made her invisible, and in that very place, she became the catalyst for the biggest transformation it had ever seen.